My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. And it's dessert week.
Yes, and I can't do my usual, I thought it was desert because...
Noel Fielding fucking well stole your joke.
But how bloody gorgeous was he? Just that slow motion of Fielding coming through...
Fielding through the fields, yes.
Fielding through the fields. I was feeling the fielding through the fields.
Dessert week's always a weird one because, like, the show is the great, in this case, the Great British Bake Off, or the Great Australian Bake Off, or the Great Canadian Bake Off, not baking show, Bake Off. And the problem is that it always feels like Bake Off is kind of a dessert show. And so when they do dessert week, it just feels like they're going miscellaneous goods. And it's not even baked goods.
Well, look, there are things that are purely baking, and then there are things that are baking plus, and desserts are baking plus.
I'd argue that most of the things tonight were baking minus, and we'll come to that in a minute because it feels like this was a deliberate decision on behalf of the producers.
Yes. I mean, in the real world, you don't have to have any baked goods in a dessert.
No.
You can just have a bowl of ice cream.
Exactly. I'm waiting for that to be a challenge.
A bowl of ice cream, chocolate topping. I'd set that.
Ice magic.
Milo.
Make your own ice magic.
Vegemite.
There you go. Vegemite?
No, I don't know. I was trying to go...
Don't do that. Never do that, people. So, dessert week, we had an interesting array of challenges this week. The first challenge this week.
Yeah, a layered meringue cake.
It's a fucking pav.
It's a tiered pav, and we've had that in Australian Bake Off in season 4, I believe.
And they basically turned around tonight, like when they went, it's a tiered meringue cake, go. And then like 4 of the bakers turned around and went, yeah, no, I make pavlova all the time. And then they cut back to them, and it was almost like the producers had a gun to their head going, baked meringue cake? Like it was almost like they felt like they had to suddenly backpedal.
Maybe it's because meringue is like a French word, and we have to. And whereas pavlova is, what's that, Russian?
Yes, Anna Pavlova was Russian.
Yeah. So they've gone, look, we need to keep our EU friends close, and the EU friends would be more likely France over Russia.
And the Australians / Kiwis need to be kept a bit more of an arm's length.
Look, we're part of the Commonwealth. We mean nothing. We're secure.
Yeah, exactly.
Under that monarchy.
We are, indeed, because we're never letting that
They're
back go.
under my yoke. Hello, everyone. Just thought I'd pop in.
Oh, God, she's back.
Yes, I do want to say I do like a good meringue cake.
Oh, God.
Particularly in the shape of a corgi. A corgi meringue cake is where I'm at.
Oh, God, Your Majesty, look, it's a bit early, but what we will say is that we can... Can we get you back on when we talk about the Commonwealth Games?
Sure, that sounds delightful.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
You're welcome.
I'm so pleased. I like it when Your Majesty makes an appearance.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Charles, where's my helicopter?
Where's Kristie? She needs to come back.
Oh, hi. Sorry,
Did you just see Lizzie?
Yeah, I just let her in on my way to the loo. I thought, the Queen's here again. She's always just popping in. She knows when the podcast is.
She really does. Like, the Queen's very good at turning up when the podcast is on.
I feel like we've got like MI5 spying on us.
We might.
Just for the Queen.
We might. So
it's Daniel Craig in a corner. It
was a pavlova. Look, and David called his a spiced meringue surprise.
Well, it was surprising. Half of the fucking spices.
Oh, there was cloves and there was... I mean, I was disappointed there was no paprika. I thought paprika and cumin is a level.
I really felt that his meringue could also double as a masala base. Like, you could just then crush it up and toast it and start yourself a nice garam masala.
If Laura from Great Australian Bake Off last season had been there, we would have got that. Like, her bizarre range of flavours would have suited this challenge
with
to the
layered
ground.
Creamed avocado.
Oh, yeah, it would have been a millennial's dream.
With prune crumb.
Prune crumb, yes. So, he was using berries and figs. Figs and berries.
Figs and berries.
So, Maggie Beer would have been absolutely delighted if she'd seen that.
She would have, yes.
Figs all over it. She
would have been like, verjuice, and she's just going into seventh heaven.
Now then, Henry made... He's the problem, again, we talked about this last week, and beyond the baking issue, and we'll come to the baking issues, but I think the bigger issue is the naming of the bakes this season has been shithouse. You know what Henry's was officially called?
What?
Towering meringue cake.
Ooh.
Wasn't that towering for a start?
Does it have a soundtrack?
There's gonna be a morning after. Anyway, beat you to it that time.
Can I just digress? Okay.
No, we've never done that before.
We're going to digress. Just quickly, I worked with a lot of people with intellectual disabilities, and there's one who I absolutely adored, and she was on basically the party planning committee, and every theme she wanted for Christmas was about her dressing up as the Towering Inferno. Like, not a character from the film.
Is amazing.
But the actual Towering Inferno.
That is amazing.
And, like, it came up, like, she mentioned it the first year I was working with her. I'm like, oh, okay, let's take that into consideration. Unfortunately, an actual Christmas theme went out. But luckily, there was a Halloween party. And finally...
Did you get it?
She came as the Towering Inferno, and I was so fucking happy with her. Not as happy as she was, but I was so happy that she got to be the Towering Inferno.
That is brilliant.
It was a good 3 years running of just trying to push a Christmas theme involving the Towering Inferno.
So Henry's There's Got to Be a Morning After Cake. He started a trend that I was intrigued by. There were so many of them using nuts, especially pistachio. I was a bit pistachioed out by this challenge.
Do you think they were under Big Nut?
I've got to be. Big Nut was leaning over the top of them. It's never nice. It's never nice when you got Big Nut hanging over you.
No, you might crack under the pressure.
So he was also measuring.
Couldn't make a coffee. There's only teabagging available. Get it? Big Nuts hanging over you.
We get it.
Teabagging.
So he was also measuring how many people were left inside the tent by lunge. He's like, it's 2 lunges at the moment. He goes, when you get to about 3.5, you've made the grand final because the benches are that far apart. Or you could count. I mean, look, one or the other. You could just count. Like, look around and like count the people. Although we've sort of established in the last couple of weeks that counting not a strong point inside the tent this year.
No. Look, if they were on 8 out of 10 Cats Just Countdown, they'd more likely be in Dictionary Corner, just cracking the funnies.
There'll be more references to Countdown coming up, because I did talk about the technical as being far more like Countdown than Bake Off.
I also want to, what did I want to mention? Oh my God.
I don't know, but you can think of it, we'll come back to it.
Well,
so
fine.
Rosie, before that, Michael was talking about the idea, they were talking about they were waiting on their nuts. Yeah. And Michael goes, always waiting on nuts. That's my life. And then there was a conversation about, can you have too many nuts? And again, Michael was like, never too many nuts. Never too many nuts. Rosie made a salted caramel. So Rosie's, again, was called Layers of Lime and Raspberry. But then they featured, when they talked to her, they featured the fact she was using a salted caramel. So, like, they did have the lime and raspberry curd in there. But the focal point wasn't the lime and raspberry curd.
Yeah.
It was the salted caramel that she was putting on top of the French meringue. And yet the bake was called the lime and raspberry. It's like, I don't know what's going on with the naming. Are they paying attention? Are they watching the show?
Because I'm feeling mightily confused.
Aren't we all?
I love the bakers. I think they're lovely people and they're very interesting. And then I feel the storytelling is all over the shop. And then I'm getting this kind of like MasterChef judges vibe from Prue and Paul, who I'm not sure if they want to be there or if they do, or just something's off. And I'm trying to hold on to the spirit of Bake Off and just remember happier times.
So Alice, on the plus side,
yes,
said she was making a Black Forest meringue cake. Mm-hmm. And proceeded to make a Black Forest meringue.
And it was delightful.
So, like, it's amazing that she actually made what she said she was going to make, and it sounded like it. So, she was doing a cherry buttercream and a cherry compote to balance out the chocolate side of things.
But no mention of Kirsch.
No Kirsch, which, again, I thought that was a chance.
Yeah. To booze it up.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of booze in a lot of the bakes tonight, and I'll go to the drinking game in a minute as well. Speaking of that, actually, we'll go to the drinking game now before we get too far down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
So, just to have a look at the drinking game.
We stop at Alice. going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. That's good point.
I'm late.
I didn't
late.
think about that.
And a very
I probably
important
should have.
bake. Get it? Good time to say hello, goodbye. I'm baked. No,
You're
I'm not
baked. No, you're not. Anyway,
No.
Hollywood Handshake. No, we didn't get one of those tonight, although we should have really. Steph should have got one.
Yeah.
Noel distracts a baker. Yes, he did.
Jeez, poor Henry.
Yes, he did.
Poor Henri.
At least 50% of the technicals don't look like Paul and Prue's one. Actually, this today, that they did. But we'll come to why in a minute. I've never done this bake to time admission. We didn't get one of those tonight. Matcha or yuzu, none, thankfully.
God.
Baker helps another baker. We got that one. David helping at the end with turning the thing while it was being flamed. Mm-hmm. Innuendos, a couple of them. And no one has ever heard of the bake. I think it's pretty safe to say when they named the technical, no one knew it.
No.
So drink.
I just want to clarify there that I said thank God about there being no yuzu and matcha because like you guys don't have to sit in the same room. I mean, you get the rants in the podcast. You don't have to sit in the next room, like same room as Chris, and he's going, using matcha. Oh, I hate matcha. It's like, I never would have guessed. Never heard you say that. Oh, and here I was going to like coat the house in matcha just for your pleasure.
So Steph was making an eaten mess, but she said a classy version of an eaten mess. Now, she had
Do you
white...
think matcha's made out of, you know, the florist foam?
I've always believed that. We've had this conversation before.
Have we?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think one of the first times I brought it up at one of our interviews with, who was it? It was someone from MasterChef we talked to about. And I did suggest that matcha was just... No, it was Fee.
Yeah.
When we talked Bake Off. And we were talking about the fact that I always believe that matcha is just...
Crumbled up foam.
Yeah, exactly. So we had Steph doing an eaten mess with white chocolate cream cheese in the middle of it.
Yes.
She wanted it to look classy. Very classy. Michael had a ganache. Michael called his a dark chocolate meringue cake. It certainly was. It was a completely encased one, which, as we would find out in the judging, was not the greatest call in the world.
Florist foam is a very disappointing texture. Like, as a child, I'd always want to poke it. And then, like, I'd get to poke it when Mum occasionally got a bunch of flowers. And I don't know why I'd keep forgetting, but I'd poke it with anticipation. And it'd be this, like, just disappointing, sandy kind of... And it was just unpleasant. So, yeah, I'm just disappointed by florist.
So anyway, Michael had a ganache. And...
What's it made out of? Like, is it...
Matcha.
Oh, that's right. Okay, it's made out of matcha.
It's made of matcha. So he did put booze in the ganache as well. Pryia also put booze in her bake, but it was at this point that the judges came over to her bench and proceeded to talk to her and tell her off for talking. Sure. And
much like me at school. Did you know every report card between like kindergarten and probably when I graduated?
Kristie has a lot of ability, but unfortunately needs to focus her energies on her work and not talk.
Yes! You know those students?
I write that all the time. So...
The good news is they grow up to be awesome people that podcast and are hilarious. And have cats. And get awesome tattoos. And marry awesome people. Just saying.
I don't know if you worked it out at home yet. She's talking about herself. Anyway, so I did feel bad for Pryia because it felt like they were going on the offensive from the start. It felt like they started off by going, now...
It was a pick on Pryia night. There
was a lot of, every time she said she was doing something, they would rock up. And again, granted, her timing has been shithouse.
Yep.
But they rocked up and they sort of started on her immediately about your timings are out, your timings are always out, you need to keep time. Yep, I will. No, you really need to keep... Yeah, we know, I will.
Your blueberry cream is a bad colour of mauve.
We'll come to that.
Okay.
So...
I'll just sit back and not wet your powder.
Prya's was literally just called a family favourite too. I mean, come on. I mean, give us something. Now, it was at this point that Michael was trying to work out how to temper the chocolate so he could coat his. And Sandy and Noel came over and decided to discuss the different temperaments of chocolate. What was it? But I thought it was really intriguing because they talked about the idea about white chocolate being the angry chocolate.
That's true. White chocolate is the angry chocolate. You know why?
Why?
Because it's not actually fucking chocolate.
White chocolate, they said, was the angry chocolate. They said the dark chocolate was actually the quite chill and...
Yeah.
and milk chocolate was a bit antsy.
Yeah, because it's allergic to dairy.
Are you suggesting that all milk chocolate is lactose intolerant?
It is. Yet in its actual form, it has got milk in it.
Exactly. It's the irony. I cannot be in my own presence. So, but I like the idea of the different temperaments.
Like a Trumpian woman, they have an innate hate of their own gender.
What would ruby chocolate be?
Oh, just fucking like a Trumpian.
Your correct answer was disappointing. Anyway, now Rosie was trying to make her chocolate, and she said her chocolate was far too grainy, and she needed to remake it because she was like, I can't do that. I can't serve that. We also had Henry, after he was getting his ready and he's starting to put the layers together, and Henry turns to the camera and says, quite unironically, it's quite a stiff boy, this one.
That's what she said.
So in terms of what we actually had for the different bakes there, so I thought that out of all of them, I mean, the Eton mess was pretty obvious, and the Black Forest meringue was pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. Again, Henry's towering meringue cake was bizarrely named and not really giving anything away, and David's spice meringue surprise sounded far too much like a Monty Python sketch. It's where they go to the chocolate factory, mm-hmm. And it's like lark's vomit. Why does a spring surprise? Yes. When you bite into it, metal springs go through both cheeks.
So a spice surprise is when you bite into it and ginger and baby just go through both cheeks. Occasionally is scary.
It feels like that's happened before. Anyway, the judging. David's, they said it looked like a painting. They said the spice was dominant, but then they pointed out that the spice was dominant and not that delicious. And in fact, the spices were overwhelming everything else in the meringue, and it wasn't really working.
I think that's also what Jerry Halliwell said towards the end.
I also want to point out that at the end, they were possibly saying, why couldn't David be a contender for Star Baker? And they talked about just the jelly in the showstopper. Did they completely forget the first challenge happened? When they went, that spice is way too heavy and it's overwhelming everything? I'm wondering if they're actually remembering the day one challenges and the day two challenges. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like they're only paying attention to one challenge.
There's a lot of selective amnesia going on.
Now, they decided that Pryya's blueberry cream colour was horrible.
Like, for fuck's sake. Like, I have to say, that kind of, off purpley mauve colour, I've seen in a lot of bakes, and it looks quite pretty.
If she put food dye in it and made it overly purple, they would have said it was garish, like they did at the end with Rosie's one, which was really pink, and they basically went, that's far too much. So she made it subtle, and they went, oh, that's a horrible colour, that one.
I'm a big fan of Pantone, says Prue, and that's just not an in colour. That's very 1934.
So it felt like they'd made a bit of a judgment before
a bad year for mauve.
It felt like they'd sort of made a judgment beforehand. Now, they then decided the amaretto was a bit too much, not something they normally say. They did also say the meringue was a bit overbaked, which that bit might have held true. Rosie, they were actually angry with Rosie because they said that she didn't do enough piping outside. Like...
Maybe it's less about the meringue and more about they want just some bagpiping outside, and it was Rosie's turn.
You went the right area, I went bathroom structures. Anyway, Rosie, go lay more pipe outside. Well, that seems awkward, but okay.
I just imagine her walking up and down, the lawn outside. Or maybe a bit of...
What about... So what about if she started playing bagpipes? Anyway, the thing was, the people at home could not see what you were doing there. And it doesn't really sound bagpipe-ish. So what you couldn't see at home there, again, this is a boarded up theatre restaurant of the mind. What you couldn't see was Kristie miming the bagpiping while she did that and talking out of the side of her mouth like she was a ventriloquist.
No, like I was blowing.
And she's moving her arm up and down like she's You couldn't see that. It just sounded like she was off humming.
Yet here we are, and you've described it, and everyone knows what was going on. Look, that's good podcasting.
That's good podcasting, but you know what it is better?
What?
Live show. So I'm going to segue now. I'm not even going to finish this judging because I'm going to talk about the live show.
Yes.
So, and I never thought I'd be able to say this. I'm going to talk about the live show because we have a live show, everybody.
At the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
So we will indeed be appearing at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. We will be doing one night only. Well, actually, it's one afternoon only. We are playing the Motley Bauhaus in Fitzroy. It is Saturday the 28th of March at 4 p.m. If you go to our Facebook page, if you go to our Twitter, we've got links up on there which will take you directly to the website to buy tickets.
Yes.
They're deliberately not that expensive.
They're like $15.
And if you come along, again, especially if you're a listener of the podcast, it makes a lot more sense if you've heard us before.
I'm just waiting for like randoms to show up and go, what the fuck is this about?
What we'd really like
Who the fuck are you?
In all honesty, what we'd really like to do is fill the audience full of you guys.
Yes.
And just have a big conversation. Right? That's literally what we want to do.
Come on the podcast.
So the best way for us to do that is for you guys to come to the show.
Yep.
So again, Saturday the 28th of March, get yourself down to the Motley Bauhaus and come and see us in person, 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and unlike other like snobs in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, we'll be like, let's go to dinner afterwards.
Yeah, we'll hang out with you afterwards.
Let's just go hang out.
We're gonna make a weekend of it. So we're gonna be in Melbourne, from Miscellaneous City to Melbourne, and we're gonna have a really good time. And part of that really good time is catching up with everyone from the podcast.
Yeah.
So come on down and come and watch it, and we'll give you a bit more of a plug of that at the end of the episode.
See behind the fourth wall.
You want to be able to see Kristie mime bagpiping? You can see that live.
Woo.
Right? You can only dream of what that looked like now. You got to see it to believe it.
Believe it to see it.
To finish off Rosie's judging, by the way, they said that the flavour was delicious, but the chocolate was a bit too thick. Again, this is the chocolate. When they named it, they didn't mention the chocolate.
No, it was all lime and raspberry layers.
And what was the problem? Ganache.
Not Ganesh.
Alice.
not some random Hindu deity.
Now, this is the other reason why, again, when we think about that first challenge and we think about what happened at the end. Alice's, they said it looked charming and the chocolate was good, but you did not get any other flavours.
No.
No cherry whatsoever.
No.
So
couldn't pop one, couldn't ripe one, couldn't pie one.
Well done. So Michael, they said it looked neat. Michael looked at it and went, there's too much chocolate. And Sandy's like, don't tell them that.
He was just giving them the words to use when they did cut it.
Well, then they cut it open. And first of all, they said that, as they said, the meringue had sweated inside because the meringue had been put there. It was still sort of half cooling a bit. And then he covered it in chocolate completely.
It was an ode to Chuckademus and Pliers.
Yeah, 100%. They said the chocolate did indeed dominate. Pryia, though, really liked the flavour. Thought the flavour was magnificent.
That was an ode to Flavor Flav.
Exactly. And the Flavour of Love, which is obviously his favourite show. Steph, they said it looked neat and professional. And they said the raspberry came through beautifully. It needed less nuts. That was where Michael made the comment as she went back and went, such a thing as too many nuts? I don't think so. Henry's. They said that Henry's was a bit messy. Paul said that he actually wanted Henry's relayered.
Just deconstruct that and put it back together.
I want the first layer on the third layer and the third layer on the second layer and the fourth layer. And he just wanted them all turned around because he was like, I think it could be better.
And I'd like it on a 45-degree angle.
Yeah. Again, I would like it on
a southwesterly direction.
On a Tuesday in March. Anyway, and they said they did like the meringue though, and they really liked the raspberry jam too. So that was good. But then he accused him of not making his own raspberry jam. Henry's like, how dare you?
Yes.
How dare you? It's clearly my raspberry jam. How dare you, sir?
I was waiting for him to pull out a glove and, demand satisfaction.
Look, it wouldn't. If anyone inside the tent was going to do that,
yes,
Henry.
Yep.
Who else would challenge Paul Hollywood to a duel?
Piping bags at dawn. Choose your weapons.
That would have been spectacular.
Like dueling spatulas.
I would have been right there for that. Then we get to the technical. So the technical, they wanted to make 6 identical vorines. Come on, Voreen. Ooh, I swear what they mean. What the fuck is a fucking Voreen?
I thought it was a Eurovision contestant.
So the solution, yeah, exactly. No.
Euphoria.
Yeah, she has
great. Loreen.
Yeah, she has great dancing. So, as Noel put it, stuff pushed into a fiddly glass.
I'm not cool with glass-based desserts.
Well, I'm not cool with this one because the baking element was minimal, and this is where we fixed the problem.
Okay.
So, if you work it out, the last 7 challenges in a row had been disappointing.
Yeah.
So the 2 previous weeks, they'd had back-to-back, just horrible challenges. And then the first one, they weren't particularly happy with the first one this week. So...
Despite the fact that some people did very well.
But overall, they weren't very happy. And that was what Prue said at the judging at the end of it. She goes, look, after the first challenge, I was really worried again. But what they decided to do was fix the problem. And you know how you fix the problem?
How you do that in this situation?
You stop them baking. So what we had was
the great
freeze off.
Freeze off. The set off.
The set off, really. There was one baked element, a single biscuit, again, and it's sablé, and a sablé is, again, in French means sand. So it's a biscuit that is referenced as sand versus stuff set in a glass.
I was disappointed that they put them 2 by 2 because sand biscuits usually go in single file.
Oh.
Star Wars reference.
Oh, God. Anyway.
Oh, guess what I did on the weekend, everyone? You can celebrate. I celebrated International Women's Day by watching Return of the Jedi with my niece and showing her when Princess Leia strangled Jabba the Hutt.
That is a moment of, women can do it all.
Yeah.
So it was mango compote and then a bunch of other shit, which I really didn't pay too much attention to.
It was layer upper layer upper layer.
Yeah, it was. So minimal instructions.
Was it technically then trifle-esque?
It was like a mini trifle in a glass. I mean, Chris from A Great Australian Bake Off looking at it going, that's not a trifle.
He's like, oh, that's like not even the babies of his trifle. It's like the zygote. It's like the sperm. It's just the ovum of his trifle. If his trifle had a uterus and ovaries, those vareens would just be the ovum in the ovaries of his trifle.
They're that tiny. The ovum to Chris's trifle. Not a phrase I ever thought I'd hear. But here we are on the podcast. So, the instructions were very minimal. Like, for example, one baked element, the biscuit, make the dough, cut it into circles, chill.
No, you also had to put a little circle in that was slightly off-centre.
Now, what I found really fascinating about this was it didn't look like, when they got to the putting it together, it didn't look like people had measured the biscuit properly. And yeah, it would have shrunk, but they should have put that into consideration.
Yeah, but obviously they were given a cutter, and that cutter was deemed that it would fit the glass, and obviously not.
Which might have meant that their biscuit was actually a bit shit. Anyway.
They overbaked it.
Probably.
By millimetres.
Doesn't matter. Now, I'm talking about desserts, and Noel turns around and goes, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, because by the time I get to dessert, I'm usually quite drunk.
Doesn't surprise me.
Now, the biggest problem I found with this challenge from a viewer's perspective was it had more maths than an episode of Countdown.
I was waiting for Jimmy Carr to come out.
Yeah.
And just go, stop the countdown clock.
Rachel, could they have baked this any more successfully? Well, yes, actually, Jimmy, what they could have done was,
Jimmy, Rachel, can you actually divide this parfait?
Yeah, there's a number of ways to do it.
Yes.
So you can do it 5 or 6 different ways. It was really... I don't find a lot of joy in watching people look at a measuring glass and try to guesstimate how to divide the liquid in the measuring glass between 6 glasses evenly. Then we had to wait for the...
There wasn't even an obvious meniscus. Like, at least when you're doing Year 8 science and you're learning about meniscuses and, or is it menisci? I'm not sure. Because I didn't pay attention. I didn't know what multiple meniscus were.
Multiple meniscus.
But, when you're learning about the meniscus and water tension and all that kind of stuff, and you're there, I used to be very happy with myself because I'd always get it bang on. I would have aced this.
Now,
I would have aced this meniscus.
you would have aced this meniscus. So the drama of the episode was, did the panna cotta set before the jelly, and it felt like we were watching an episode of MasterChef.
How do scientists break sexual tension?
I don't know.
With a meniscus. Get it? Because I'm funny.
Oh, shit. Anyway. So again, it felt like we were watching an episode of MasterChef because the panna cotta setting and the jelly, did it set, did it not set before you poured it on top of it? And except for Pryia, everyone else's did. So when Pryia did it and it just plopped underneath, they went, oh, I need to reset that. And that was it. That was the drama. That was the level of it. Then we got Michael. And Michael was then reading the last part of the instructions, which was make a streusel. At which point he posited that streusel was indeed someone from The Sound of Music.
Yep.
Then he went, no.
That's Liesel.
That's Liesel. Now, look, we did a bit of digging, and of course, there is a streusel.
A Streusel Trapvon.
Streusel Trapvon, who was actually a hardcore Nazi living outside of Germany.
And had to break into Germany.
Yeah. And
like, she passed the Von Trapps going in.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she tried to exchange armbands with them, and they weren't into that. That was a bit weird. She turned up at the singing competition just in time to see, like, the aftermath.
Yes. She's like, but I'm here to sing my...
Ode to the Führer.
Yes.
Again, she was going to sing the classic hit Vorwärts, which is, of course, Forwards, the German Hitler Youth song. And look...
Missed out.
I thought that Streusel was a character that looked like, I think they cut it for time in the end of the movie.
And look, it really didn't add anything to the story.
But not that it's 16 going on 17, so, you know...
Yeah.
Or Rolf. Rolf doesn't have much of anything either, apart from, like, the idea of we're going to sacrifice this boy for the greater good. I told you all, I've got many problems with The Sound of Music. We've mentioned them all the time before. The Austrian fucking Navy, I rest my case. So, now...
Look, they sail on Lake Geneva to the Finland station. So,
at this point when they were bringing their stuff up, everyone's walking really slowly. And Noel turns around and starts talking to Henry about, do you realise you wore a matching tie with the colour of your shirt? And Henry just looks at him and goes, not now.
He really had that whole, like...
I'm going to kill you, Noel.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you.
We've all been in that position where the person that we can usually have a joke with, and it's usually me being the Noel, and I've just got to get it out of my system, even though I can see that I'm going to get shot saying what I'm going to say.
You do frequently walk in front of the firing squad.
Yeah, just kind of like, you know, I'm a slave to comedy. What can I say? It'll be hilarious in another 10 years.
So, the judging. David's, they said the texture was good and it tasted good. Steph's, the biscuit was a bit overbaked but good, great flavours. They said that Rosie had a thin biscuit and the jelly didn't set properly. Michael, they said the panna cotta was really thick and the mango hadn't set. Pryya's didn't set at all. Henry's, they said it tasted good but it was really thick. And Alice, they said the lines were good and the flavour was excellent. So the judging for the technical. Pryia came 7th. Michael came 6th. Rosie 5th. Henry 4th. Steph 3rd. David 2nd. Alice 1st. So, you know, again, Alice had a really good challenge there. Steph had a pretty good one as well. Like, you got... And at the bottom, you had Pryia and Michael. And heading into the last challenge, I'm like, I'll take Pryia and Michael. This will be close. Wasn't as close as we thought, and not necessarily because of reasons. So 4.5 hours was for the showstopper.
Yep.
And Bake Off fans around the world cringe. It was a bomb.
Here comes the bob. Here comes the bomb.
Now, we know a bomb Alaska in particular is something that we've seen a few times.
Yep.
It's infamous within Bake Off. It is an infamous bake. So they decided to do, it was just a bomb dessert.
Yep.
Now, as Paul Hollywood...
They didn't give it a specific United State.
As Paul Hollywood pointed out, different layers and textures, and if one layer collapses, they all tend to collapse. I actually think that was kind of true. When you look at David's, and I'll sort of skip around a little bit here in this challenge. David's jelly, right?
It wasn't ready.
They said that David's jelly was rock hard. Now, the reason I think that David's jelly was actually rock hard is because he was the only person who attempted a sorbet. And so, obviously, when everyone else put a mousse, which has got obviously a cooling temperature, it's not like a frozen sorbet. So you put frozen sorbet. It's like when you go to Cold Rock.
Yeah.
And you get the ice cream, and if you get the mix in with all the mix-ins, and if you get gummy bears,
they go rock hard.
They turn rock hard.
So sorbet is essentially Viagra for jelly.
Let's go with that.
You know, some 50-year-old jellies wake up one morning and go, you know what, just going to have to face facts.
Now,
Need some sorbet.
Now, it was Michael's birthday.
To ensure that Mrs. Jelly is satisfied. Or Mr. Jelly, they might have.
So it was Michael's birthday.
Yes.
It was his 26th birthday. And, which I know, we're all a bit amazed by that. He decided to make a Black Forest. And a cherry jelly and a cherry cheesecake in the middle.
Look, everyone, I'm really sorry. Erectile dysfunct gel is just not a laughing matter.
Ooh.
Oh, see, it's not a laughing matter. I'm so sorry.
That doesn't stand up to the rigorous testing. Anyway,
What
I do like, Michael had at least tried this at home, thought to himself, this isn't working, and tried to make an adjustment. But as we sort of found out at the end, didn't work. He decided that the problem with his cheesecake, because he kept on saying his cheesecake wasn't setting properly. So rather than get rid of it, he decided it was the fault of the cherries. And he got rid of the cherries and went with freeze-dried cherries instead because he went no moisture. I've got this sorted. No, you don't. It turns out there's still a problem with the cheesecake mixture because it kept melting.
Maybe you should have added more cheese, like a hard cheese.
Or more cake.
Yeah, that too. But actually more cake in the cheesecake.
Look, I had one of those Hokkaido cheesecakes the other day from one of the Japanese bakeries, and again, it's fluffy and delightful, and also firm. Yes. It's never actually going to melt and fall apart. So that at least is a strong point of it. So Alice decided to make hers a tiramisu. Mm-hmm. Notice how nobody made their bomb butt.
Because their butt would be the bomb.
Their butt would be the bomb.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Nine-Nine!
Maybe there was a bit of suing threading going on there.
Yeah.
But Alice decided to make her bomb a tiramisu, which led to a conversation about the amount of coffee that teachers drink. Yes. Yes, they do. I once had to fill in a survey where one of the students was asking how many coffees do you have a day. My number wasn't on the list.
Oh, just couldn't count that high?
Yeah, really I had to fill in the 4 or more. And then there was a written in for how many more, and I think they feared the answer in all honesty, because they kind of knew. Classes know, for example, I will start a lesson.
Yes.
If it's the first lesson of the day and I'm having a particularly bad morning already, I'll have one on each hand.
Double fisting in front of the classroom.
If I've got a plunger with me at the time too, the plunger will be sitting on the desk in front of the cup. And they'll just look at me and go, oh, that bad, huh?
It's just a coffee fort.
So
to divide you from the children.
She also went with the teacher's favourite thing, rum. So pistachio parfait and a spiced rum. Again, I like to think that a lot of the parfaits tonight were just preparing us for MasterChef Australia, as we said before. Like a pistachio.
It was a panna cotta, wasn't it?
Yeah, but she made a pistachio parfait.
Oh, wow.
The panna cotta was in the technical.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
This was a in the showstopper. This was a pistachio parfait. And a spiced rum.
And it was in a dome mould.
Yeah, in a dome mould as well. Again, this is just Bake Off all over again. And once again, how was it that Bake Off decided to fix the problem of baking?
By removing the need to bake.
Remove the need to bake.
It was the great set-off challenge.
You know, if you take the baking out of Bake Off, it becomes so much easier.
Look, just the mixing ingredients.
The blend.
The blending. The great British
blend off. The great British blend off. There you go. So Pryia
there was the blitz. Now there's the blend.
So Pryia was almost like tempting fate by using blackcurrant liqueur, because they already criticised her for the blue in her colour, and anything like that's a blackcurrant. No, I don't like the flavour of that.
No, they're blue meanies in that tent.
And then she had summer fruits bavois. It's good to see a bavois. I mean, we haven't seen a bavois in a while. No. She said, I'm not worried about time. And Paul Hollywood just got really rude again.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. I'm going to make sure we're finished. I've heard that before too. I'm going to make it good. I've heard that before too. Oh, for fuck's sake, Paul, shut up and go away.
It was pretty negative Nancy. Like, it's like the editors mistook showing someone not doing well for picking on them. Like, it
wasn't very good.
No.
Steph, now everyone else at this point in time, they said that they've given them the option of using a sponge. You get your head out of the gutter.
You know.
We're talking about birth control. I mean, damn it.
You're talking about bombs.
Damn it.
We shouldn't yell that out too loud with the MI5 listening in.
We know, again, after Lizzie arrived. So...
What do you mean I can't go back and see my favourite podcast?
I like to view
We're
it.
talking about bombs? No, this isn't Ireland in 1983.
Anyway.
Too soon?
Far too soon. So... They point out at this stage that everybody had been told they could make a sponge if they wanted to. And I'm like, it kind of feels like cheating. A little bit. But what I loved was that Steph went, fuck that for a joke. I'm just going to make a good mousse. Mm-hmm. So she made a dark chocolate mousse and decided to set that and then go with a chocolate glaze. And she turned around to the judges and she went, look, given that it's going to be chilled quickly and the timing, I'm probably not going to get it to mirror. And I thought that Paul and Pryia were going to jump the counter and smash her head into it.
No mirror, boom, boom, boom. That's what you get.
It turns out it mirrored beautifully.
She fucking killed that. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
But not in the show kind of way.
Not in the shitty show way. Anyway, Henry then announced that he was going to try something a bit different. So Henry's like, no, everyone's trying to freeze all these different elements and they're not freezing properly or they're going to be hard to freeze. I'm going to put everything in the mould. I'm going to put my different levels in the mould. And what I'm going to do is I've cut cardboard rings.
Yeah.
And they're at the different levels of where I'm going to have the dividing lines. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the bit of the gel, then I'll put a cardboard mould. Then the next bit of gel and a cardboard mould. And the last bit of gel and a cardboard mould. And I'll put that straight in the freezer. Then I'll take them out of the freezer. Mm-hmm. I'll remove it from the mould. I'll pull the cardboard out and I'll reconstruct it around the bomb.
Yeah.
That was an absolutely fascinating way to do it. What was more fascinating was watching David watch him.
It was completely...
David's there looking at him and he's got these cardboard layers in between the gel and David is just leaning on his desk with his hand sort of under his chin going, what's he? That's it. He's finally lost his mind. He's finally gone mad. And I'm just like...
And then Alice turns around and goes, we're all mad in here.
It's me. What could this mean? So... That's actually quite clever, though. And then David announced that he was making sorbet in the middle between the mousse and the jelly we talked about before. And he also announced that he was using rose water. Usually a toxic element in Bake Off.
Yeah, and after that spice endeavour...
There's been a few times this year, though, that rose water's been used. Once it was too strong. And once they couldn't taste it.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean...
It was a Goldilocks affair.
It was.
Luckily, he was the
just right.
The baby bear.
So, Rosie announced that she was making hers red for her parents' Ruby anniversary. And that was kind of the last we saw Rosie. She just faded off until they got to the judging and told her that it was garish and too pink. Anyway, we then had... Ladies and gentlemen, if you are walking down the street and it's a dimly lit street, be careful, because if you see a guy wearing an apron and a bow tie and he's standing around talking to other gentlemen, all in aprons too, you might have just hit the lads.
Having their lad talk.
The least laddie lads club in the history of mankind. What were they talking about? The setting of gelatin, y'all.
Yes, well, I loved this whole, like, fuck you to toxic masculinity. Like,
keeping it straight.
We are 3 of them. I don't think that comes into the vernacular.
It's about as street as they get, really.
Oh, you said street. I thought you said straight. I'm like,
No, I said keeping it straight.
Okay. High street. Probably Downing.
And again, this was another MasterChef element because,
at the very least, the Royal Crescent.
Because as we've talked about, like the gelatin setting is that's a MasterChef issue. There's lots of elements of MasterChef in this last challenge.
But no agar.
No agar, disappointing. Now, Michael, they then cut back to Michael, who was trying to put the jelly inside and get all of his constructed so he could then set it.
Finding out if it was ready for his jelly.
And again, as he said, the technical technique, tossing it in.
Look, if you're going onto Bake Off, it's important that you're a good tosser.
It is very important you're a good tosser. Now we play the waiting game, which sucks, and we all should play Hungry Hungry Hippos. But in the meantime, they all, like, this is where everyone starts walking around and just standing around and waiting. And there's not much you can do at this point in time. Everything has to go into the chiller. And I love Noel Fielding goes over and turns around to Rosie and goes, "Now, how long would you give yourself to do this at home?" And Rosie just goes, "A week, maybe 2." Fills everyone with great confidence. And they needed that level of confidence because we were at the point where we were awaiting the many, many miracles. Because it's the hard part.
The gestating of the bombs.
When you take the dome molds out of the freezer and you turn them upside down and you wait to see if your bomb is going to come out or not.
It's like if someone's diffusing a bomb and they're trying to choose between the red wire or the blue wire. This is the red wire, blue wire moment for a cooking bomb.
It really is.
Will it come out of the mold?
So, Alice's was stuck. Now, this became a theme because it didn't come out very fast. Henry got his out, but then couldn't work out where the hell the cardboard layers were. So that was a bit of a panic until he finally found them. It took him a while, though. He's like poking at it and going, "It's here somewhere. The cardboard's got to be here."
Waiting for him to bring out a divining rod.
Just
try to find the cardboard.
I like the idea that he forgot. And like he's just got a large solid slab of gel. So he then found out that his layers did in fact work, which I don't think anyone was more surprised that Henry's layers worked than Henry, who thought it was amazing.
Closely followed by David.
Well, David's came out and it looked weird. Because again, and Noel looks at it and he goes, "So what you've got there again is you've got sorbet sitting on top of jelly. Never thought I'd see that." And it looked odd because, of course, the sorbet level didn't set the same way as everything else.
No.
So it didn't set in a perfectly rounded shape. There were gaps and it sort of went in a little bit. So you had like outside mould, then a divot in the middle, and then it went back out again. It looked weird. Until he then covered it in the meringue, obviously, and toasted it.
Yeah.
But when it came out, it didn't look. It looked like the top of a nuclear warhead.
He was going full atomic with his bomb.
He really was. When Michael's came out, he was so delighted he fell to the floor, and like laid on the floor. Alice still couldn't get hers out of there. She was tapping it. She was trying to warm it with her hands. She was moving it around. She could not get the damn thing out. Henry was also now worried because Henry was like, "Oh, is mine going to fall apart while I try to pull this out?" Eventually, Henry got his out. Once Henry got his out, I know.
A lot of people would have been very happy.
And then
Henry got his out.
Alice has finally managed to escape the container as well. Steph then poured the mirror. So Steph then went, "I'm going to pour the mirror glaze, but it's not going to mirror, obviously." And as she's pouring it, you can see quite clearly.
It's shiny.
It's very shiny. And you're like,
shiny, I think Gabby was about to jump through the screen and grab it.
It's like, this is going to work. David then runs over to Henry and goes, "What can I do?" And Henry's like, just turn the wheel. So he starts turning it and they're torching it. And at one point you just heard him go, "I think I just torched the cardboard."
A little fire starts.
Exactly. And then we got Noel Fielding finishing the challenge and finishing the episode with a great line that you don't expect to hear every day. "Please place your bombs at the end of your benches."
Look, it's something that I imagine would happen in like a counter-terrorism unit, in the diffusing section.
Exactly.
Maybe in a pro-terrorism unit in the creating the bomb section.
Make sure that we can check them.
Yes. Please leave the bombs at the end of your bench so we can make sure.
Quality inspection.
Okay, if one actually works though, like, will they even get to the rest to see if they work? Because
that's a quality bomb. It's like how do you become how do you become, like, in any organisation of any persuasion? How do you become an absolute expert in the art of becoming a human bomb?
Oh, look, I think it's a lot of.
Like, no one is an expert at that. No one.
No, there is no master's degree.
So the judging.
Not even undergraduate.
So they called Steph's up first, and they were pointing out the fact that Steph was possibly in line for 3 star bakers in a row. The mirror glaze worked. They said it was absolutely stunning. Then they cut into it, and they said the mousse was absolutely fantastic. The bavois worked. The mirror glaze wasn't too thick. The chocolate wasn't too heavy. Paul Hollywood didn't say a word. This is all Prue. And then Paul just looks at her and goes, I think this is one of the best things I've had to eat in a very long time. Where was the handshake, Paul? There should have been a handshake there.
I've just realised what's wrong with the editing.
Yep.
And it's particularly obvious in this episode. They are telling us rather than showing us.
Yep.
A lot of us was them trying to tell us that Pryia sucked because she talked too much and her colour was wrong and blah, blah, blah. But there was not enough shown.
Yep.
And with Steph, it was a lot of like Noel went over to David and said, oh, how would you feel if Steph got another star baker, and then had Steph sneak up behind them to find out?
It was weird. And when we'll get to this in a minute when we talk about the judging, especially of Michael and Pryia. They didn't show us anything. And in fact, with Pryia, they didn't really give us a great reason overall.
No.
We'll come back to that in a minute. So, Rosie's, they said it looked celebratory and colourful. But then they decided that it was a bit too bright, possibly, and a bit garish. They said the mousse was more like a fool than a mousse. And the mango didn't work with the rest of the raspberry. I'm like, that doesn't... It feels like it would work. But... And Rosie sort of challenged them on that too. David's was really pretty, apparently. It was white. They said the layers were good. And then Paul pulled a weird face when he tasted the sorbet, but then said that he loved the sorbet because it was really sharp. I'm like, but then said that the jelly was too rubbery. So they praised it, and then went, but the jelly's rubbery. And I'm like, that's kind of a massive issue.
Yeah, because it means that there's either too much gelatin in it,
or as I said, I think it's because they put a frozen element on top of the jelly and it overset. Michael. Now, they started with wow. Then they said that it looked like it was from a 1970s sweets trolley.
Probably pushed by the trolley witch.
Possibly.
On the Hogwarts Express.
But then...
You cut into it and bats fly out. And Helena goes, oh, I'll have some of that.
But when they cut into Michael's, it was just runny.
Yeah.
And the cheesecake didn't set. And they said, you haven't set that cheesecake. It does taste like a bit of a Blackfriars Gatto. But they said you have not set that cheesecake and there are big issues with the cheesecake. Now remember that when we come back to Prayers. Alice, they said it was absolutely beautiful. The layers were pretty. It held together really well. The flavours were great. And Prue called it an absolute triumph. So again, Alice had probably... It's probably Alice's best bake in the whole competition so far.
I honestly thought she was going to be Star Baker. I mean, I know Steph did a bang-up job.
I felt that it would be Steph all the way through, just because I thought that her first challenge was stronger.
Yeah, you're right.
And that last one, again, when Paul Hollywood says it's one of the best things he's eaten in a long time, it's going to win.
Yeah.
Pryia. They said it looked elegant. The sponge was beautiful. The mousse was really nice. They just said that the raspberry and chocolate needed to balance a bit more, and you needed to be able to tell people what order to eat them in, because if you ate them in the wrong order, they wouldn't balance as well. Now compare that again to a running cheesecake.
But then they must have taken into account this week then the technical, because Pryia came 7th.
And Michael came 6th, so they're really close on that one.
But then if the showstopper outweighs the technical, and we've seen it many times where Star Bakers...
We've been told that the technical doesn't really matter in the equation in comparison to the showstopper.
So then we look at the signature.
And again, in the signature...
So Pryia didn't have the greatest flavours. They weren't happy with her shade of mauve.
Well, they weren't happy, but that was the criticism.
But then Michael's was all chocolate.
But the criticism in the first challenge was that... The criticism in the first challenge for Pryia was that the amaretto was a bit much, and they said the meringue was overbaked. But they said that Michael's melted everything. And dominated everything with chocolate. So it's... I don't quite get it. I think Pryia might have been paying for sins of previous weeks.
And I feel that perhaps the story that we were witnessing tonight didn't match what we were seeing.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is too, and a lot of people have pointed this out, Pryia should have gone last week when Helena went.
Yes.
Helena shouldn't have gone last week, it should have been Pryia.
And I loved Henry's little bat, like a spider web brooch that obviously I think Helena possibly gave it to him. I probably think so. They mentioned that, didn't they?
They didn't mention it, but I'm pretty sure that she probably did.
Yeah.
They said that Henry's was simple and elegant. Then they cut into it. The cake was tough. Paul said, I'm desperately hunting the apple because all I can taste is cinnamon. And then said it was a bit bland. Now, my question is, if all you can taste is cinnamon, how is it a bit bland? Surely it's a bit spiced. It's weird. The judging was weird. And then they cut back to Prue, and Prue is talking about the fact that, well, we've said that at the bottom all the way along this week at the moment it's been Michael and Pryia, but I do need to point out that Henry and Rosie, for a baking contest, made absolutely terrible cakes. And it's the most overboard, blatant, I think, that they've been in a very long time.
Yes.
But Prue was the one not pulling punches in this episode.
No.
Like, Prue turned around, as I said, started with the first challenge, said the problem with the first challenge was after that first challenge and the way they cooked that first challenge, she was prepared for a horrible week.
Yeah.
She just said, I don't think it's going to be very good. I was fearful of it because of the first week. But she said, they sort of redeemed themselves. And again, all it took, remove baking from the baking show.
Easy.
Take away the bake.
Simples.
All you got to do, take away the bake. Simple. It's the way to fix Bake Off at the moment. If they can't bake it, take away the bake.
You know what they can do to fix my kitchen rules?
Take away the show.
kitchen.
Take away the show. All together, take away the show. So, Star Baker was Steph for the third week in a row, and Pryia went home. Look, again, I kind of feel like, it should have been Michael, but that's not defending the idea that Pryia was magnificent and probably deserved to win the competition, because I think Pryia was going home at some point soon. But Michael keeps on sidestepping, and I'm not quite sure how he does it.
Yeah, and even David is the big
Last week I thought he did it.
inconsistent.
Well, last week I thought Michael might have done it a little bit on the tears. This week I think his birthday puzzle played into it.
Yeah.
Like, what's next?
Just his grandmother's centenary.
Let's go with that, shall we? We can check with Lizzie, because obviously she sent the telegram, so she'll know that. We'll find that out.
And I'm also questioning, I saw Henry cough. Does that mean he's patient 0 for coronavirus? Just
throwing it out there. He might be who you never can tell.
Stuck up in that toilet paper, folks.
Oh, don't say that. I sneezed today, and I got looked at by people going, "Are you sick?" I'm like, no, they've just finished painting a classroom that I'm in, and like my nose is all mucked up because there's dust and paint fumes. What's wrong? I'm high on paint fumes, not coronavirus. High on paint fumes. Very different story. Not at all a problem for the department to worry about. Anyway, that was kind of this episode. I don't quite know if it was better or worse than last week's. I feel there was definitely less baking.
Yep.
Again, remove the bake. When in doubt, remove the bake. Bit of a conversation before we go here, actually, because there's been a few people people have been asking the question online about this series, and asking, again, we said there was an article the other week talking about, is there a problem with British Bake Off? There was a couple of comments tonight about, is there a problem? Are Paul and Prue interested? What's the issue with it? We've said we like the bakers as individuals, but the quality of the baking hasn't, in the last 3 weeks especially, it's not been great. And you don't expect to see that from British Bake Off.
No.
It's a concern.
It is. And like, we're in its 10th season, which means, and we saw with MasterChef, it kind of hit its height-ish in the 10th season. It was, it's not that the format's tired, it's more that something's slightly amiss.
Yeah, and I think it's in the casting. This one, I don't think the format's necessarily tired, although again, they could do probably more with it. And I didn't like the bakes they chose. But I also feel, and we've talked about this before, in series of Bake Off previously, they've clearly made a decision halfway through. British Bake Off's done this a few times, where they've worked out what they've got and they've changed it. And I go back to the series a couple of series ago, where they fucked up the sponge in week 1.
Yeah.
And you saw them gradually make the technical easy. Because they worked out they couldn't do it. Now, this technical tonight, for example, it had many steps to it, and they talk about it being tricky. I don't think it was tricky. I just think there were a lot of parts to it. I don't think in terms, again, in baking skill, there was no real baking skill in it. I think it was just you had to know to make and set.
Yeah.
And there were multi-steps to it, but I don't think it was tricky in terms of it was a really complicated thing you had to make that was really hard to do. I didn't think they had that there.
It was more about time management.
Yeah, which has been one of their problems. So it was almost like they went, well, we'll go with the time management element of things, and we won't so much worry about the quality of the baking or, in this case, the mixing, because we don't really know if they can do it. Yeah. So I hope that they can fix that up in the coming weeks, because we want it to go back to being where it was.
Absolutely.
Right? We want it to be really good again. That's kind of your lot for this week.
Yes.
So hopefully next week they'll give us more to work with as well, because there was not a lot to work with tonight, I'm not going to lie.
No.
So obviously, again, check out the Instagram and the Facebook and the Twitter and all the social medias for all the information about Melbourne.
Yep.
Melbourne, we're talking about all the different shows, so don't panic if you're like, but I don't watch British Bake Off. We'll be talking about everything.
Yeah.
All right, and we're going to get some audience participation going. It's going to be fun. There might be a drinking game involved.
There might be a panto.
There's definitely going to be a drinking game involved, put it that way.
Bring along your favourite cinema snacks, like Fugass.
Yeah, bring along Fugass. I haven't cleared that with the Motley Bale.
We'll have to find out.
I can't imagine they're going to have a problem with people bringing Fugass. Can't imagine it's ever come up.
No.
Just putting it out there. Until next episode, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We'll catch you all later.
Ciao.